Okay, hello, this is Dan. I'm going to be doing the tutorial today on the ABCs of startup in myHOAst. First of all, I'm going to be referring a lot to the user's guide. The user's guide is under the help menu option in myHOAst, and the latest user's guide is dated April 1, 2019, and it was made available this morning to all myHOAst or all host clients. So again, that's April 1, 2019 is the latest user's guide, and these references relate to that user's guide. Now, first of all, there is a startup checklist. You know, the ABCs of getting started is really a checklist that exists already in the user's guide. It's on page 17. We're not going to go to page 17 because we're going to abbreviate this, but there's a lot of detail there, especially about clients in Florida. It relates to things like the board resolution, which is unique to Florida. So I suggested that when this is over, take a look at page 17. Well, we're going to cover the broader look at this, and the first thing we're going to talk about is providing data to host. Obviously, we have to have data for your community in order to set up a voting software for you. If you're using the Pro version, that's the version that allows us to link into your property management software like TOPS, Sync, VMS, Caliber. Then all you do is provide us the code so we can go into that property management software and extract your data. Otherwise, you're going to be looking at page 20, which gives you the Excel spreadsheet format for providing us data to set you up the first time. And that's on page 20. The second piece is to check the voter list. That is, after we've gotten the data from the product management software, or after we loaded it from your Excel spreadsheet, check the voter list within myHOAst. And again, that's features 70, 71, and 72. The voter list is very important. This says who can vote, and we have to recognize that a Pro version, getting it from the property management software, most property management software don't recognize what a voter is. Therefore, you need to do a double check on what you get ended up in the voting list. In other words, if you find that a company is on the voter list, and we know companies cannot vote, you may want to delete that voting list and put a voting certificate name in that area. C is creating a meeting with a survey. We're going to be doing these things, and then after we create the survey, we're going to invite the members. And I got feature 120 and 5 because you may invite the members via email, or you may invite the members through postal mail. Feature 120 is the email, and feature 5 relates to the postal mail. And then you send a message and email from your messaging service. And I say your messaging service because it's possible the first time we relate to your members, the invitations are going to go into their spam folder. It'd be a good idea the first time to send the email to them from your service saying you've been sent an invitation. Look in your spam folder in case you can't find it in your inbox. So let's look at some of these things right now inside of myHOAst. Okay, so here's my myHOAst version. It's called President's Row, and I'm going to log on as an admin user. I think I got it straight. Okay, now I'm logged on. I am a voter. It recognizes me as a voter, so I'm landing in the voting page, and there's a sample election going on right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the owner's meetings. I'll back up and do this in a moment here. I'm going to delete this, and so we can have a fresh start. Okay. So when you get into myHOAst, again, the first thing to do is to check the voting list. That was B. That is under CM voter list. Now, these are the voters, and they look pretty good to me, but I am responsible to make sure the people listed here are truly voters. If John Smith was delinquent and he's lost, I'm going to revoke his voting privilege. I'm just going to do that by hitting the trash can. That doesn't delete John Smith from the system. It just deletes his ability to vote. So again, you're controlling the voting. C was to create a meeting with a survey. That would be feature 80 and 89. And 80 is creating the meeting, and 89 is creating the survey. 2 steps. So first thing we do is we create a meeting. A meeting has a name. We'll call this survey for tutorial. Location, I'll say, is online. And the date, we'll say it's today. And we'll say it's at 10 o'clock. And I'm going to add a meeting. That was feature 80. Feature 89 now is creating the survey. So again, I'm going to click on this line for the pull-down menu, and I'm going to click on voting. Voting indicates election voting, changing a community document, and it includes surveys. With every package, you have unlimited surveys or unlimited things to vote on. We have 2 choices here. We have the new election ballot, which is a secret vote, and it's not a directed or limited proxy vote. And then you have the not secret vote, which is your proxy vote setup. So again, if the voting is anonymous, you click on this button. If the voting is not anonymous, if you can recognize who the vote came from, it's this button. Where I go next does not change, but this is telling the system how to handle the votes as they come in. I'm going to suggest that I'm going to use new meeting vote, a not secret vote, every chance I get. I'm only going to use the secret vote when it's required. If you're a condo, it will be required for all of your board elections. So I'll hit this one. And now I have to fill out this. This will become the survey that we're voting on. So I'll say, do you want the board to research the cost of adding speed humps in our community? That's a pretty good question for our initial survey, because people care about speed humps. They either hate them or they love them. And so this might get some additional involvement or participation from your members. You could even say beyond that, that the board will do this research only if the majority of members say yes. In other words, this is saying that the board is going to honor this vote. And I'm going to assume that this is a survey and it's being done to learn about electronic voting. So I'm going to take electronic votes only. I'm not taking any paper. Choose file allows you to add a file to the vote, add a document. This is good if you're doing a election for the board of directors. This is where you would add all of your resumes, your candidate information sheets. If you're going to be passing some construction, you might be attach a picture of the area, or you might attach the diagrams of what's being built. Max number of responses for a yes/no question, that's going to be just 1. Minimum number, 0 means you can accept a blank ballot. Now, for those of you in Florida, which is most of you, a blank ballot counts towards your quorum, so I encourage blank ballots. If you're not in Florida, you may or may not want to accept a blank ballot. Write-in responses, if I say yes, that means that you don't have to pick from just my list. You can write in anything you want as one of your choices. I don't like that for a survey. I want to make sure that they have to say yes or no. I will say yes as a choice. I will say no as a choice, and I will save this. Now, the person creating the survey or the election ballot may not be a voter, may not be able to see the vote as a voter. That's why we have this button here, this View All. I can click the View All button and see what it's going to look like when a voter logs in. This is what the voter is going to see on the page when they log in. So I can get a little look at that, make sure the spelling looks right, make sure it presents itself well. Then I can click here and actually see what the ballot looks like. So the ballot is going to look like this. Again, I can't vote. This is not a voting place. But this is showing me what the ballot looks like. It allows me to edit it, to change it, until the first person votes. There's no editing of the ballot after the first person votes. I like this fine, so I'm going to say back and back again, and I'm happy with what I have here. So I now have a survey created on this meeting. You'll see here that there is a running total of quorum. If this was a secret vote, you would never see a running total of the actual election numbers, but a survey you can. Quorum 1, used in Florida, it's the quorum based upon including electronic votes as part of the quorum. Quorum 2 is the quorum without using electronic votes counting toward the quorum, other states like Texas. Okay, so that was C, create a meeting with a survey. Julie, this might be a good time just stop and say, ask if there's any questions have come in.
One question, is a secret vote required in Texas?
I don't believe Texas uses any secret votes for anything. I think Texas uses non-secret for everything. Any other questions, Julie?
No other questions, but I just wanted to remind everyone that there are tutorials posted on our site that cover setting up votes and meetings and tutorials. I just wanted to add that real quick.
Good. Also, in the user's guide, at the end of the user's guide, there's Appendix A, which gives you a step-by-step pictorial on how to do what I've just done here, how to create a vote, whether the vote is an election or a survey, step-by-step on how to do it with pictures. Appendix A. Appendix B is how to handle a secret vote at the meeting, and Appendix C is how to handle the not secret vote, how to handle a survey or a proxy vote throughout the voting process. So Appendix A, B, and C are excellent resources for you. So we're down to D now. Go ahead, Julie.
I'm sorry, I do have another question. How do you know if there is a quorum without e-votes on this website?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. You said.
So I think I understand. I think I have an interpretation. This is Eileen. It sounds like maybe they're saying, so you have e-votes, but you've also got paper votes. How are you going to know what your total quorum is? That's an interpretation.
Okay, well, first of all, there is a quorum that is required for votes to change documents or to elect board members, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the quorum that you've reached using this system. So quorum 1 takes into account electronic proxies received, electronic votes received. It takes into account any paper proxies that have been received and added into the system, and takes into account proxy votes that have been received either paper or electronic, as long as they're entered into the system. Quorum 1 also includes people who are present at the meeting, assuming you're you're using myHOAst to keep track of who's coming into the meeting. So Quorum 1 includes all those things that dictate how you arrive at a quorum in Florida. Quorum 2, it does the exact same thing, but it doesn't give you any credit for the electronic vote. Places like Maryland, for instance, the quorum is based upon receiving a proxy, but not receiving electronic vote. So depending upon what state you are, you use Quorum 1 or Quorum 2. Just remember, this is the quorum you've arrived at based upon what you've entered into the system. The system doesn't know what quorum you're looking for.
Okay, can you show us on the site where we could find quorum?
Quorum is right where you see it here. We're on the owner's meeting line here, and that's where we're going to display the quorum. Let me give you an example, for instance. I'm going to go here to my account, to the vote in general proxy, and I'm going to go ahead and vote. I'm going to say yes, sign it, and vote. Now, if I go back to the owner's meeting, I'm going to see that if you're using Quorum 1, which includes electronic votes, your quorum has been increased because an electronic vote came in. When you look at Quorum 2 here, which does not consider electronic votes, the fact that electronic vote came in has not affected the quorum. The quorum has not been increased or moved at all because Quorum 2 here does not include electronic votes. How's that sound, Julie?
I will reach out and I'll let you know.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay. So that was A, B, and C, and now we're on D, which was to invite the members. We don't want to invite the members until we have something to vote on, because when the members get in, they're going to land on the voting page if they're a voter and we want something there. We want them, when they come in the first time, we want them to experience voting. Voting is so easy that if they get in and experience it one time, they're more likely to return. They're more likely to participate in online voting at the meeting where you want them to participate. So what I create this first, then I invite them. And inviting them would be under email users. And in my presentation, it said that inviting members was feature 120 or 5. This is 120. This is how you would invite members if you have the ability to send them, or the permission to send them, email. If I go to send a username and password to those who have never logged on, that will give them an invitation, a hot link to get back to the site. It'll give them a temporary username, a temporary password. This is by far the simplest process, but this is going to them via email. So if you don't have the ability to send email, or don't have the permission to send email to your members, then you look at feature 5, which tells you what you can mail to them with the postal mail. Let's assume we're doing this. What I would do, I would hit send username and password to those who have never logged on. And in this system, we're keeping track of those who have said that we can send them communication, email. This is their permission to receive email. Not every state cares about this. I'm going to assume that I can send email to everybody. I'm going to check that. Now up here, I can send it to all users or voters, addresses not opted in, or users selected from the list. If I do users selected from the list, that is when somebody says, look, I didn't get it, would you resend it to me? You hit users selected from the list, and it'll give you all of the users in the system. So here with this Mickey Mouse, I can send just Mickey one by checking this off and hitting select, and then just Mickey got that email. This is a warning telling you that when you send somebody a temporary username and password, that username and password is going to be the only way they can log in. If you do this multiple times, only the latest username and password sent is a valid one. So if I do this today and tomorrow, and you get on your computer and you will see 2 emails, and only the latest email is going to work to get you on the system. So don't do this too often, but it's reasonable to maybe do this every couple months. So I will confirm this. And now Mickey Mouse has been sent a username and a password. If I go to message statuses here, and there's the one I sent, and I will see that I sent it to Mickey Mouse. When it went out, it was successful. This is another way of checking all of your email addresses. So again, this is a good way to invite users. Again, I'm going to send to all users selected, and I like the addresses not opted in. When you first start, that's going to be everybody, and this is not opted in for electronic voting. Even those states that do not require that will find this a useful aspect in the software. Address is not opted in. The reason I like using that is because it doesn't bother those addresses where they have more than one voter. For example, Eileen and I own the same property, and Eileen and I could each have the ability to vote. The system won't allow more than one vote per address, but it could be either one of us voting. So if we decide that Eileen's going to be our voter, and Eileen opts in and Eileen logs in, and I decide that she's doing the voting, so I'm not going to do it, hitting addresses not opted in is going to skip me in the future. It's going to say our address is covered by a voter, and that's Eileen. So we have somebody in this property that is opted in and voting. Therefore, we can leave the other person alone. That's very useful because sometimes when this decision is made, people get irritated continually receiving the invitation to opt in, and they've already got their address covered. Any questions on this, Julie?
Can I opt in even if I don't vote?
Yes, yes. In most states don't have opting in as a requirement. States like Texas and Maryland, you just vote if you want to vote online. And opting in is just a way of saying, consider me one interested in doing online voting. And it's a way of categorizing you and giving you certain information. In a state like Florida, opting in is a requirement. You cannot vote online unless you opt in. So in Florida, opting in allows you to vote in any future election online. And there are certain requirements in Florida as far as when you can opt in. So yes, opting in you do not have to vote. Opting in also allows you to send in electronic proxies as well. Any other questions, Julie?
Not at this time, but at the very end of everything, if we can revisit a question from earlier, but go ahead and continue until the end.
Okay. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint slide here because this is what we covered. I know it's a lot of detail, but after we provide the data to host so that we have a site set up, after we look at the voter list, make sure we're looking at proper voters, then I showed you that we create a meeting and then create a survey. Feature 80 is creating the meeting. Feature 89 is creating the survey. And then invite members to log on. Feature 120 was doing it via email, the smoothest, best way, as long as you have permission to use it. And if you look at feature 5, you can see how you can send a piece of paper for the member to actually go to a site and request a username and password. That's for people that we can't just send it to them. And then E is sending an email from your messaging service. Now, myHOAst has the ability to send the email. The issue is the first time a member gets an email or an invite from myHOAst, they're receiving an email from an unknown source, a source that has never sent them an email before. Therefore, it's not unexpected that that email may go into the spam folder. If I was to send, so the invitation may go into the spam folder. If I send an email saying, hey, I sent you an invitation, that's not going to be useful if that goes into the spam folder also. So my suggestion is, at least the first time, send the email from whatever message service you've been using. That likely will not go into the spam folder because they have already received an email from you before. And that email would say something like, we have sent you an invitation from our new online voting software. If you don't see it in your inbox, look in your spam folder. So that's why we say perhaps from your messaging service might make sense the first time. Now, number two, just a note here, I'm going to tell you to always have a survey available. Always. You can never tell when somebody will log on for the first time. And we always want to make sure that when a person logs on for the first time, they have the opportunity to vote. So I would say that if I'm going to, let me show you this here. Go back to my owners meetings. If I decide that I'm through with this survey, I can close any vote by clicking this box here. This says that the audit trail is going to say that I close the voting time. So that's fine. Now this vote's closed. Now that means the vote doesn't exist anymore. And I will demonstrate that by going to my votes. And there's no vote there. It has disappeared. So that makes sense if I'm creating a new vote, or perhaps I'm having a board election, or I'm changing community documents. But once I have finished with my election, I'm going to go back to my survey, and I'm going to uncheck it so that the survey exists again. Again, going to my account and votes, now it exists again. This way, you always have something out there to vote on, and if you have anybody new in the community, perhaps a new purchaser of an address, or somebody who is just a little slow in logging on for the first time, or the email invitation that you sent out, you've now done it again. It's been 2 months since the last one. You've done it again. You might get some new people. Always have a survey out there so that anytime a new person logs on, they have something to vote on. I think that's always very important, and we sometimes forget that. Julie, any questions?
Yes. Can you set an expiration date when you set up the vote? So the example here is that board elections can only be voted on up to the owners' meeting.
Yes, well, the system is so fast that that to close an election, close the election time takes less than 1 second. So what I'm suggesting is, if this was a board election, I'll go back to my owners' meeting. If this was a board election, I would be at the meeting. I would say, okay, 5 more minutes to get your paper votes in. Give them 5 minutes. At some point, I'm going to announce, okay, voting is now closed. We're taking no more votes. And that's when I would check off this, and now no electronic votes can come in either. In other words, the electronic votes should have the same period of voting that your paper votes have. There's no reason to have less time, and you certainly can't have more time. So I would open the votes when I put the ballot in the mailbox, when I send it out. That's when I would open this electronic vote. And I would close the electronic votes when I'm at the meeting. I say, the votes are closed for everything. If you have a meeting and you don't have the ability to use a computer, then I would close it for electronic voting as late as I could, perhaps the night before or the morning of, or maybe an hour before the meeting. But there's no reason to close the election for electronic voting earlier than you have to, just based upon your time and your ability to get to a computer. Anything else, Julie?
I'm sorry, hold on let's see. Okay, so the answer is no then?
Right, the answer is no. You must, there's no way we could do it automatically, because everybody is going to have a different time frame to use, depending upon your own situation. But at the time that you think you should be closing the election, or you close elections for the paper, that's the time you should be clicking this, which will also close it for electronic.
Okay, and then can you explain again the difference between opt-in declines and voting deadlines? Oh wait, I'm sorry, opt-in deadlines, I believe it's supposed to say.
Yes, and this is particular only to Florida. Florida requires you to pass a board resolution. The board resolution has 3 parts. One part is how the opt-in process will occur. So I really recommend you get help from your software company to write that board resolution. The software you use will change how the opt-in process will occur, or how it may occur. So, get your software company to help you out with it. We provide a board resolution to all of our clients, and that's a good way to go. So step 1 is how opting in will happen. Now, this isn't important in any other states, because opting in is optional. The second part of the Florida board resolution is the number of days prior to the meeting that requires the quorum, number of days at which point you will not allow a person to opt in. So it relates to a meeting that requires a quorum. That would be like a document change or an election, not a survey. If the meeting requires a quorum, then you specify how many days prior to that meeting will you no longer allow somebody to opt in. Opting in is not voting, but if you don't opt in, you can't vote. So step 1 is opting in, and at what point are you going to say, we won't allow you to opt in anymore? Now, if your system is fast and live, like this one, like myHOAst, I suggest the number of days is 1. In other words, if you wake up 2 days before the meeting and decide you want to opt in and vote online, I want you to vote online. It's going to be less work for me. It's going to be less opening of paper ballots, less manual counting. So I want you to opt in, because I want you to vote online. Therefore, I'm going to give you the most chance. I'm going to say you can opt in until 1 day before the meeting. The third piece of the board resolution is the same thing in reverse. How many days before that meeting that requires a quorum, how many days before that meeting are you restricted and you cannot opt out? And I'm going to suggest 30 is a good number. I believe that you should not be able to opt out once we have done our mailing, because the mailing should go to people who are not opted in. So I want a stationary target there. If 50% of my members have opted in, then that means that I don't have to send the mailing to those 50% of the members. I don't want you to then opt out, and now you have no ability to vote online, and I did not send you the paper ballots. So I believe it's 1 day before the election is a good time frame to restrict opting in, and 30 days before the meeting to restrict you from opting out. I know that seems very complicated, but we'll help you out with it, and we will provide you that board resolution if you're in Florida. Julie?
Does HOAst do the mailing?
No, HOAst does not do the mailing. The HOAst provides the the software for the online voting. The tasks are still yours. HOAst just makes it easy. For example, if I had to mail out, now this is again Florida, I don't have to mail to anybody who's opted in, any address that's opted in, I don't have to mail to. So HOAst makes life a little easy. You can go to CM, create voter label data, and when I click here, address is not opted in, that is the list of addresses that are required to receive postal mailing. So again, it makes it very easy for you to do your mailing, but we're not doing it for you. We're just assisting you and letting you know where the mail must go. Anything else, Julie?
Where are the features to put in the opt-in, opt-out dates?
You say, where are they?
Yes, where?
Where are they? Well, let's see here. I'm looking at my user's guide right now. It is feature 86. For those of you who haven't looked at the user's guide before, the first 27 pages, the first 27 pages should be looked at and glanced over, perhaps read, first 27 pages. After that, starting on page 28, we have a spreadsheet or a listing of what myHOAst can do. What I recommend is you look at that part, look at page 28 through 36, look at 28 through 36 and find the item that you want to do. Like when I'm looking at page 30, I see that feature 86 is specified deadlines to opt in and opt out. So that says it is feature 86. I then go look up feature 86, which is on page 64. And that gives me 4 steps to do the process. Just about everything you can do in myHOAst is done in 4 steps or less. So use the chart on page 28 to find what you want to do, and then you look up that, as opposed to reading 170 pages of a document. Much easier just to read the first 27 page and then find out what you want to do and look up just the instructions to do that task. Julie?
Okay, I think we're good.
Okay, let me just finish up then with this. The addresses currently opted in indicate the addresses that have some voter in that address that has said they're interested in doing online voting. If you're in Florida, if an address has any voter that says they've opted in, they're interested in online voting, then that is an address you can skip doing the mailing of the voting package to. So there's a savings there. For people outside of Florida, this tells you what percentage of votes you can expect coming in for your election. So addresses currently opted in is a wonderful thing to look at, and that's feature 130. Let me show you where that is. I go to reports, and I go to summary. And right here, we have addresses currently opted in. In this case here, I have 44 addresses out of my 45 in this community. So I have a 97.78% addresses are opted in. So if I'm in Florida, there is only one address I have to mail a ballot to. But this is what's nice to look at. Look at this percentage here, and you'll see it increasing, indicating the involvement of your members or your members wanting to participate in online voting. It's a wonderful thing to look at and watch grow, especially when you first do these steps, create the survey and send out the invitations. Julie? Julie? Hello, can you still hear me?
Oh, yeah, I just got a note from Julie. She lost the call. Okay, so I'm going to say if there are any other questions, this is Eileen. If there's a question that you had sent to Julie that you didn't get covered, if while Dan is wrapping up, you could just send that to me, Eileen McCready, and I'll put the question out to Dan. In the meantime, let me just say that on this last slide, what you see is the URLs to our website where you can see the schedule of our online tutorials. We've got another 2 coming up soon. We've got one on the 18th, and we've got one on the 25th. The one on the 25th might be of particular interest to you because it's the myHOAst Roundtable. It's any question, all question you have about any feature in myHOAst. So please take a look at the schedule of online tutorials that you see on the slide here on this link, and register for that class and for the one on the 18th as well. And that way you'll be able to join the tutorials. So what I'd like to be able to do is get your questions for that, and when you register for that, I will be asking for that within the registration form. As Julie mentioned earlier, you can also go to find the recordings of the online tutorials at the link that you see here, cleverly written online tutorials. So you can go there to look at any of the tutorials we've done so far. And we're still looking for suggestions for tutorials going forward after April. So far I have nothing scheduled for May or June. We're thinking we probably won't do any for June or July, only because there's a very busy month for folks and I'm not sure there'd be time to do that. However, if you have something that you think we should have been covering, we'd be happy to schedule one. And even if there are only a few attendees, we can be able to record that tutorial and get it posted out on the website. Oh, I do have another question for Dan. Can you show me how to add paper proxies to the quorum total? I am in Florida, but I have owners that will not opt in to the online voting because they like getting paper. So again, can you show me how to add paper proxies? And I'm sure Dan will be happy to show you that. And just by way of a reminder, when you go out to the online tutorials, you'll see one out there about adding paper proxies and such to the quorum total. So Dan, can you do that, please? And I think Julie is back. I'm going to turn it back to her.
Absolutely. First, let me say that on this meeting here, and this was, of course, a survey, but let's say it's a meeting that I require a quorum. Perhaps this is an election. What I want to do is I want to add a general proxy. Now, a general proxy is, in Florida, is redundant if you're voting online, because in Florida, the online vote counts towards your quorum. And if you do an online vote and a proxy, you still just get one. You still count it as just one. So this is redundant. But by adding a general proxy in Florida, you have a place to put in your paper proxies for those that are not voting online. For a place like Texas, the online vote would not count towards your quorum. So you need the general proxy even for online. So let me add a general proxy. And the only thing you need to provide for a general proxy is the default proxy holder. In most cases, it's secretary of the board. Sometimes it's property manager. Sometimes it's a name. But that is my default proxy holder. So I just add that. And now, with this check mark here, you can see that a general proxy has been added. What does that look like for the voter? Let me open up the election so I can show you. Now, if I go back here to the vote, now I see a bright blue button here, general proxy. So now, and this is true with every state, I can go into the general proxy, and all I have to do is sign it. I can just sign this, and I have submitted my general proxy. I can also take this away and put in a different name. And I sign it. Now, if I was to go to the owner's meeting, this is a very interesting thing here, the quorum 2, which includes proxies, has not been increased. and this includes proxies. In fact, and so this is because I go to record general proxy. This is for paper. I've got one proxy received and one proxy waiting for review. So that proxy did not get immediately accepted. And that's because in every state, if you designate somebody other than the default name, you have to wait until the meeting to make sure the default name is in attendance at the meeting. If you're at the meeting and this default name is in attendance, then you can say this is a legal proxy. So and then I would say, yes, okay, then this is a good proxy, and now it's approved. So let's go back to the meeting. Okay, I'm going to have to look at this. Anyway, here's where you would put in your paper proxies. As you receive paper proxies, you would come in here and you'd search for the name. It's proxy from Nixon, it's right there. You need a proxy from Obama, check off there. You just check off these as you get proxies in. And you can see that the quorums are increasing as you add proxies. So I would recommend that even in Florida, when the proxy is redundant, because you're voting online and the quorum has already been added to with the online vote, I would suggest you would still create a general proxy so you have some place to put the paper proxies. And the system will not double count. If your proxy is added, if your quorum is added to from the online vote, if you do the online vote and the proxy, the system knows that you've covered the address twice. It will not count two, it'll just count one. Julie? Or Eileen?
Yeah, Julie was on for a bit, and it appears as though must have dropped her again. So that's fine. And Julie, thank you very much for facilitating most of this meeting. We appreciate that. I just wanted to say the last thing I wanted to add was that the meeting on the 18th is tips for increasing opt-in participation for online voting in myHOAst. So with that pretty much does wrap up this. I'm going to give one more minute, well, not really a full minute. If there's any other question that people have, if you want to send it to me very quickly. So I do encourage you to sign up for these online tutorials. I think the benefit of being present at the tutorial as opposed to just listening to it is that you get to ask the questions that are top of mind for you. And then you get to hear the other questions that people have as well. So I do recommend that you do that. You join the online tutorials whenever it's possible for you to do so. Okay, with that, we're going to conclude then. We have no other questions. So thank you very much, Julie, for facilitating. And Danny, thank you very much as always. And we'll look forward to the next time we talk with all of you. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.